Terrified of death my whole life. I'm so afraid.
Chloe Zhao is an anomaly. She's one of cinema's most distinctive and distinguished directors, making films that are strikingly original and full of artistic risk-taking in an era when Hollywood is increasingly risk-averse. Her latest film, Hamnet, is up for several Academy Awards, including Best Director and Best Picture, and it's already won 2 Golden Globes, where Zhao's acceptance speech for Best Drama was an ode to vulnerability.
The most important thing of being an artist is learning to be vulnerable enough to allow ourselves to be seen.
Zhao's characters are often painfully vulnerable.
Are you married? I am, but my husband died.
They're wounded misfits and soul-searching outsiders confronting deep personal loss. Like in Hamnet, an adaptation of Maggie O'Farrell's historical novel about the death of Shakespeare's young son, as seen through the eyes of his wife Agnes.
I see you in London working with your father.
Zhao herself is an enigmatic presence, hardly the sort of hotshot personality we often associate with big-time Hollywood directors. And yet, she's reached the pinnacle of an industry still dominated by mostly white men. Here's my conversation with Chloe Zhao. Chloe, thank you for taking the time to come speak with us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I want to start with an award season question. Your eyes just got glazed over a little. Sorry.
No, it's excitement.
Yeah, that was a look of excitement. Yeah.
Like an animal in the jungle.
There's obviously a lot of award season buzz around Hamnet, and by the time this interview comes out, we'll know what nominations the film did or didn't get. But right now, the thing that I'm curious about is sort of what, like, the whole awards rigmarole stirs up for you, because I imagine it could involve feelings like of envy or competition, or it involves salesmanship or glad handing, which I feel like are not necessarily the kinds of feelings or ideas that are interesting to you or come naturally to you. So how do you deal with this moment?
I love that. That's almost like a form of compliment that you just did. You think of me a lot more highly than...
I mean, maybe you like doing it, I don't know.
But I think all those quite basic emotions, none of us can escape it. And especially artists, so many of us, majority of us started telling stories because we didn't have the easiest childhood, right? So when your work, right, which is the only way that you can see connection and validations since you're a little child, is being compared and judged, you could go as far as feeling a rejection of that is a rejection of who you are, and whether your ability to belong to a tribe or be safe or be loved. You could go that far, and it does go that far to me at times. But what I like about it, I don't know if people know, is that filmmaking is quite of a lonely process. At least speaking as director, you're like a Ronin, you're like a samurai.
A wandering samurai.
Yeah, you're getting hired to do jobs and jobs and jobs, and then you create this family, and then you have to leave again. So award season, especially if someone like me who came up from independent films and having to go festivals and labs after labs to even get money to grants and to make my first film, I was exposed to a lot of my fellow filmmakers over a decade ago. So to be paid, to be brought together and to see each other and to hang out at these, events and round tables and stuff is actually really nice. I try to ask them to let me come to their set and just shadow people. I think that there should be a system where directors get to be on each other's set, because otherwise how do we keep learning?
What do you think someone could learn from watching you work?
How to embrace chaos. Pretty much, Hamnet was created that way. For example, when Hamnet died, spoiler alert. Don't think you can spoil this
No.
film.
It's a historical fact.
Yeah. Someone died, someone wrote a play. Hamnet died, and on that day, Jessie and I would not talk about, we don't really talk about the scene coming in. She would, in the morning, she would do a lot of fever writing about her dreams, and then she would pick some music. And so as soon as I get to set, I will just put the music on repeat. So the whole set sort of get harmonized to the vibration she wants to be vibrating in. And we just, other than a conversation about which setup we want to do, we just go in there and do it. And so when she let out that very guttural scream of grief, that was not something that was planned from me nor her. But I do believe it didn't just come from her, it came from the collective, the village. And when that happens, I can feel it. And it's the most exciting thing for me as a director, because I go, there's no way any of us could have thought of that. And because that is truth happened in the moment. And I will bottle that up and I will defend it in the edit, and I will make sure it goes into the world.
You know, it's so interesting to hear you talk about sort of the practicalities of directing for you, because, you know, often when I've heard other directors talk or read about other directors, there's sort of recurring images or tropes of how a director behaves that are, you know, it's like I want to say it's Francis Ford Coppola who said this. I could be wrong, but he compared being a director to like being a ringmaster of a circus that's inventing itself every day. Or sometimes you hear directors sort of compared with generals or something like that. And these are all sort of very to my mind, kind of like alpha, aggressive, macho metaphors for for the job of directing.
That's
on the
great
day.
too.
But it's so not what you're describing. And I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you handle sort of the necessary leadership aspects of being a director and making a movie.
You know, I like thinking about myth. If you think about in myth and in archetypes, what are the types that can lead?
Yeah.
Traditionally, yes, you have a general, but you also have a priestess. Both can evoke the desire for people to get excited to follow their vision. Doesn't mean that the example you give of what Francis, said that he is that and I'm this. Both of these two archetypes is within ourselves. So there is a general inside of me, but there's also a priestess inside of me. It just depends on the scene. It depends on the film. And some filmmakers have a bit more priestess energy in them than generals, but both can lead and both are needed. Mm-hmm. If you only have the priestess, it's total chaos, black hole.
Yeah.
If you only have the general, it's total order and just one beam of light and nothing else. But I like to be in those two extreme polarities. I'm supposed to constantly kind of have my hands in everything, controlling everything, but also not fully controlling everything. No, I like to be total surrender and then total control.
I have kind of a historically inclined question for you.
Okay.
So, in Shakespeare's time, the time period in which Hamnet is set, the death of a child was a much more common occurrence than it is now, at least in sort of rich Western countries. And I assume that as a result of that, people just had a different perspective on what it meant to lose a child, or different feelings or expectations. And I'm just curious if that's something or how you thought about that with your film, and if you think it's possible to sort of recreate older emotional perspectives?
That's a really good question. I think about that all the time. Maggie said that she doesn't believe it's possible that the grief is any less.
Maggie O'Farrell, the author.
The
of
author,
Hamnet,
yeah, she said that to me from the start. And I tend to agree with her because even though things are so different, but our biology hasn't changed. And the design that we have to want to protect a child will not change. However, the stories we attach to that pain, which is suffering, might be different because they also have a different love relationship with the unseen back then, right? You know, I recently trained to be a death doula.
Really?
In the UK. I just finished level 1 training, foundational training. And in one of the training sessions, we had to research indigenous cultures from around the world, how they deal with death and dying, both today and also in the past. And you can see that the grief of losing a loved one doesn't change, right? However, the societal understanding of what death is and what and the space it gives to grief and the ceremonies and how is embedded in the culture has shifted so much, and the medicalization of death,
Yep.
right? And also in the modern world, when death is no longer seen as a natural part of life, because now it's about staying alive as long as we can. There's almost some kind of shame